Most people think hostility is loud. They expect it to come with anger, confrontation, or obvious tension. But the hostility that changes your life the most is the kind you don't see coming. It hides behind smiles, concern, humor, and familiarity. It doesn't attack you directly, it studies you. And if you've ever walked away from certain conversations of feeling drained, confused, or quietly diminished without knowing why, this is something you were meant to hear. Most people think hostility is loud. They expect anger, raised voices, obvious conflict. But the most dangerous hostility never announces itself. It hides behind politeness, concern, humor, and even affection. It lives in pauses, in tone shifts, in subtle reactions that feel off but are easy to dismiss. Hidden hostility doesn't attack you directly, it studies you first. It watches how you move, what you tolerate, and how deeply you trust your own perception. And the moment you start doubting yourself, it knows it has space to operate. Hidden hostility shows up quietly, often from people who claim to support you. These are the ones who clap when you succeed but never quite meet your eyes. The ones who joke in ways that sting, then act confused when you flinch. The ones who offer advice that subtly undermines your confidence rather than strengthening it. You don't leave these interactions angry, you leave them drained, questioning yourself, replaying conversations in your mind. That confusion is not accidental, it is the signature of concealed resistance. What makes hidden hostility so powerful is that it exploits your goodness, your empathy, your desire to see the best in others. You tell yourself you're overthinking, you rationalize their behavior, you soften your instincts. Meanwhile, the hostility remains intact, growing bolder, as it realizes you won't confront what you can't fully name. This is how people lose clarity, not all at once, but in small, repeated moments of self-betrayal. One of the earliest signs of hidden hostility is inconsistency. Someone who is warm one day and subtly cold the next. Someone whose support seems conditional on you staying small, agreeable, or non-threatening. When you assert yourself, their energy changes, not openly, but noticeably. Their enthusiasm fades, their tone flattens, their encouragement turns into distance. This isn't moodiness, it's resistance surfacing in safe doses. Hidden hostility often disguises itself as concern. "I'm just worried about you," they say, while planting seeds of doubt. I don't think that's realistic, framed as practicality rather than limitation. And over time, these comments accumulate. They don't stop you outright. They slow you down. They make you second-guess your instincts. And eventually, you begin editing yourself before they even speak. That's when hostility has successfully outsourced the work to you. Another form appears through selective support. They show up loudly for things that don't threaten their position but grow quiet when you step into your power. They celebrate surface wins but disappear during moments of real growth. If you pay attention, you'll notice a pattern. The more aligned you become with your purpose, the less comfortable they seem. Their silence becomes louder than words. Hidden hostility also thrives on plausible deniability. Nothing they say is overt enough to confront without sounding sensitive. If you bring it up, they deflect. If you press further, they minimize. This forces you into a corner where protecting your intuition feels socially risky, and so you retreat, you swallow it, you adapt. But your nervous system remembers, your body keeps score long after your mind tries to forget. The truth is, your unease is data. That tightening in your chest, that sudden drop in energy after certain conversations, that is awareness speaking before language catches up. Hidden hostility shows up as misalignment long before it shows up as behavior you can explain. And the more you learn to trust that signal, the less power it has over you. This first step is not confrontation, it is clarity. Seeing clearly without rushing to fix, justify, or excuse. Because once you recognize how hidden hostility shows up, it loses its greatest weapon, your uncertainty. Hidden hostility rarely announces itself through what someone says. It reveals itself through patterns, small, repeated behaviors that feel insignificant on their own but undeniable when viewed together. One of the clearest signs is subtle contradiction. A person agrees with you verbally, yet their actions consistently undermine that agreement. They say they support your goals, but they don't follow through. They nod, smile, and affirm, then behave in ways that stall, distract, or destabilize you. Over time, this mismatch erodes trust, not because of one incident, but because your intuition keeps noticing the gap. Another revealing behavior is selective memory. People operating from hidden hostility remember your mistakes in vivid detail, but forget your progress entirely. They recall moments where you struggled, hesitated, or failed, and bring them up casually, as if reminiscing. Meanwhile, your growth, discipline, or resilience goes unacknowledged. This isn't oversight, it's framing. By anchoring you to an outdated version of yourself, they subtly keep you from stepping fully into who you are becoming. Hidden hostility often appears through timing. Notice when discouraging comments surface. It's rarely random. It happens right before a breakthrough, during a moment of confidence, or when you're visibly energized. The remark may sound harmless, "Are you sure now is the right time?" But its placement is strategic. It introduces doubt at the exact moment momentum is building. There is also a particular kind of humor that carries hidden resistance. Jokes that target your ambition, your seriousness, or your emotional depth. If you react, you're told you're overreacting. If you stay silent, the message still lands. Over time, these jokes condition you to shrink parts of yourself to avoid becoming the punchline. Another pattern is the quiet withdrawal of warmth. When you assert boundaries, speak confidently, or refuse to over-explain, their energy shifts. Conversations become shorter. Engagement fades. Enthusiasm cools. Nothing is said, but everything changes. This withdrawal functions as a subtle punishment, a way of signaling disapproval without ever admitting it. Hidden hostility also reveals itself through comparison. They casually mention others who are more realistic, more balanced, or less intense. These comparisons are never neutral. They are designed to reposition you, to suggest that your standards or clarity are excessive. Watch how these individuals respond to your boundaries, not the words they use, but the energy behind them. Genuine respect feels steady. Hidden hostility feels brittle. They may comply on the surface, but their behavior changes afterward. Another sign is information control. They leave out details, delay responses, or offer half-truths that complicate your decisions. When questioned, they act surprised or offended, reframing your need for clarity as mistrust. Over time, this trains you to stop asking questions and to accept confusion as normal. Perhaps the most telling behavior is how they react when you stop seeking validation. When you no longer explain yourself, justify your choices, or ask for permission, something shifts. They may become more critical, more distant, or suddenly concerned. Your independence removes their leverage. Hidden hostility is not distributed evenly. It is drawn to specific qualities, often the very traits you were taught to soften. People who experience it most intensely tend to be self-aware, emotionally perceptive, and internally driven. You notice patterns quickly. You feel shifts in energy. You carry depth that doesn't need validation, and because of that, you mirror what others avoid in themselves. Hidden hostility forms in the presence of quiet strength. When someone is internally stable, they become difficult to control. Instead of confronting that discomfort directly, others express it sideways, through subtle resistance rather than open conflict. Growth also attracts it. When you evolve, you disrupt unspoken agreements. Your boundaries remind others of what they've neglected. Your peace makes their inner noise louder. Hidden hostility emerges not because you've done something wrong, but because your presence has changed the emotional landscape. It also targets those who don't compete but still excel. You don't seek dominance, yet your consistency speaks loudly. This unsettles people who measure worth through comparison, so they attempt to reposition you internally by planting doubt. There is a moral dimension as well. Strong values create contrast. Even without judgment, standards make avoidance visible. Some respond to that exposure with quiet resistance rather than honesty. Empathy plays a role. Those who listen deeply become containers for unresolved tension. That tension doesn't always come out as honesty. It leaks as passive aggression, withdrawal, or subtle undermining. Hidden hostility also lingers because you give people time. You believe in growth, you believe people can change. Some sense this grace and stretch it, crossing lines slowly because they assume you'll keep understanding. But when you stop absorbing discomfort, the dynamic changes. Subtle resistance cannot survive clarity. It either transforms or becomes visible. Hidden hostility drains you through ambiguity. You replay conversations, you analyze tone, your nervous system stays alert. This mental looping diverts energy from focus and rest into constant interpretation. You begin carrying emotional labor. You pre-edit your words. You manage invisible tension. Over time, this fragments your presence. You experience internal conflict. Your intuition senses something is wrong, but logic can't prove it. Self-doubt grows. Discernment weakens through repetition. The exhaustion often hits later when you're alone. Irritability and heaviness surface without explanation. Your body remembers what your mind postpones. Enthusiasm fades selectively. You share less joy. This is not withdrawal. It is protection forming quietly. You overfunction to keep things smooth, which normalizes the imbalance. Your capacity shrinks while the resistance remains. Momentum fractures. You feel centered alone but unsettled after certain interactions. This stop-and-start rhythm drains growth. The shift begins when you stop trying to resolve what was never openly created. You conserve, you limit exposure, you reduce emotional availability without explanation. The most effective response is not confrontation, it is alignment. You trust impact over intent. You stop seeking explanations. You adopt emotional neutrality. You respond without over-explaining. There is nothing left to pull on. You remain consistent. You don't reward warmth or punish withdrawal. The push-pull collapses. You become precise with access. You protect growth through containment. Boundaries become embodied. You decline without justification. You disengage without apology. You redirect energy inward. Hidden hostility loses relevance when your center of gravity is internal. You validate yourself. You trust perception without consensus. The dynamic dissolves or exposes itself. Either way, you lose nothing. Awareness becomes embodied. You stop carrying what isn't yours. You stop bracing. You stop explaining clarity to those who benefit from confusion. Your relationships reorganize naturally. Some deepen, others fade. This is refinement. Your confidence quiets. You trust silence. You trust boundaries. You trust timing. Your words become cleaner. Less justification, more presence. You no longer manage discomfort that isn't yours. You observe maturity without effort. Self-trust locks in. Peace built on self-erasure is no longer an option. Hidden hostility loses its landing place. You have changed your relationship to it. You don't harden, you clarify. You filter rather than isolate. And in that clarity, you move differently. You live without interpreting what was never said. You protect peace without apology. That is the quiet victory, not winning against anyone, but no longer losing yourself.